Hey guys, Scott here. Behavior had their Q&A yesterday, and every time they do this, I try to pick out the most important or coolest parts of it and try to summarize them. It was basically 2.5 hours long, and most of it is just kind of useless. Unfortunately, when they do Q&As, it's usually just filled with a lot of just filler non-answers. Just as a joke, I counted, from like a scale of 1 to 10, how useful their answers were, and we got like 3.4 something as the average. So most of them were pretty useless, and they would answer questions that are useless. I say useless when it might not be useless to some people. Like, some people care about cosmetic rewards for something like that, or like, what's the Houndmaster's dog's name or something. I don't know. Some people might care about that stuff, and that's fine. I'm not like shitting on you for liking that stuff. I'm just saying in terms of usefulness for things related to the game and the game's health, it was definitely less helpful than more helpful. But there were a couple of things I did want to talk about that they mentioned, and let's just start off. I just basically screen grabbed all the important ones. First off, they have claimed on regards to equalizing Survivor audio that with the Five Nights at Freddy's release, our audio team performed a full pass through all Survivor volumes and normalized these. So Survivor-specific audio should be much more balanced. Now, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. That just didn't happen. So they said that they normalized Survivor sounds, something they've been working on for 6 years at this point, but that's just not true. Go load up the game, pick Jane, pick Ada, stand them next to each other. You can just tell there's a huge difference in their volume. So I don't know what they think they did. I don't want to say that they're lying because it would be so easy to disprove. This must be they're talking about something else, like maybe they're vaulting sounds or something like that. They do get into it a little bit here and talking about vaulting sounds and stuff like that, but we're not talking about that when we're talking about equalization. We're talking about injured sounds, breathing sounds, things like that. You can hear a Meg breathing 50 times easier than you can hear an Ada breathing, for example. So those are the things we're talking about for, hearing survivors behind walls and things like that. That's what needs to be actually balanced. A survivor vaulting sound effect, yeah, it's useful when you're like playing Spirit and they're slow vaulting and stuff like that, but that's not really the main thing we're focusing on. So that might be what they're talking about here, but survivor sounds are not normalized at all. This was, as close to a lie as you can possibly get without them actually being malicious. I don't think they're being malicious here. I think they might just be talking about a different set of audio triggers or something. I don't know. But I don't think they're just lying there. This one was interesting. This is a response to the Kidnap Tech from the Ghoul. For those who don't know, the Kidnap Tech, I got this from Luca Douche on Twitter, great example, is the scenario on the right where you are stunned, the Ghoul vaults, and can hit you at the same time. Obviously, this results in a free hit, which is ridiculous, and everyone has considered this to be a bug. And the developers originally said, we just wanted to note that this is not a bug. After they got massively hated on it because, what the fuck, why would they not? It's clearly not intended. They pretty much said, actually, the interaction's unintended, which means it's a bug. I don't know how you can say, this is not a bug. It's an unintended feature of the game, but it's not a bug. Like, that's kind of what a bug is. I don't know. So they're saying this is just sort of how the power works, and they're looking at ways to address this. I don't know why they didn't just say that first. I think maybe they thought it was something else. Maybe they just thought he was talking about the Ghoul simply vaulting a pallet and getting a hit later or something, which, can still be very strong, but there are things you can do to counterplay that. Kidnap Tech has no counterplay. You just get hit every time. So maybe they thought we were talking about something else, and then when they got grilled on it a bunch, they're like, oh shit, actually no, it is bug. Whoops. So I don't know. These are these are the kind of answers that you get. It's kind of hard to take behavior Q&A seriously, but I just thought that was funny. Not necessarily super important, but I do want to see that fixed because it is just clearly busted. It's a free hit. This is an interesting question. Why is MMR hidden? I think we all kind of know the reason. They don't want people fighting about their numbers and all that stuff, but the response was kind of cool. So MMR is hidden as we do not see it as a goal that people should aim for in our game. The point of MMR is purely for matchmaking purposes. It's never intended to be the driving force behind the game. Fun is the number one factor. So that closing statement there, fun is the number one factor, I do think is one of the first times we've had a definitive stance on like competitive balance versus fun whatever. And they've sort of hinted at being more geared towards fun whatever, but also in the past they've said the opposite too. So very confusing, and kind of depending on the person you ask on their team, you might get a different response. But I think this is true that they prioritize fun more than balance and things like that. And the reason is everything they've said in the past kind of like justifies that. They've even gone on record as saying they intentionally want some things to be imbalanced because they want that underdog scenario to be possible where a worse player can beat a good player because the map they got is just way better for them, or vice versa, the map is way worse for the killer, or like just whatever. So they want that to be part of the game, which means they truly do. They really prioritize the wow moments, the underdog moments that you remember. But that has a really nasty side effect of making the other side have these terrible moments that they remember where they get fucked over by a bug or RNG or a bad map or a perk at a bad time. Like, so it's like they focus on fun for one person at a time and not necessarily the whole game. And a balanced game does not necessarily mean a fun game, and a properly match-made game also does not mean a fun game as well. But it seems like that seems to be where their intentions lie, which is good. That's probably what it should be. But again, in practice, it ends up, I feel like, just not being like that a lot of the time. But it was really interesting to see them actually say fun is the most important thing when it comes to MMR and matchmaking and balancing, all that stuff. That's cool to see that just actually written in text there. Interestingly, they have said that they are making it so scratch marks can be different colors. Now, they hinted at this years ago, like 4 years ago, when they said auras were going to be changeable as well. You know, like when you see a survivor's aura through a wall with a perk or something like that, you can change that to a different color. They talked about that years ago, and this was mentioned around that time as well. So it's cool that they're finally getting around to it now. We have an actual time frame, end of 2025, so just 4 months roughly we're looking at. So that's a tangible time frame to expect this now, which is great. It's just funny it took them 6 years to change a color, to have an option to change a color. I just thought that was hilarious. Any plans to create a map with a more unique theme and layout, such as an urban map or a waterside map? I normally wouldn't care about map-specific questions, but their answer was pretty interesting here. They said they'll be very pleased. You have to wait until March 2026. They brought up March 2026 a number of times. Trickster changes are coming in March 2026 as well, so people are starting to speculate we might finally be getting that actual Trickster map, the whole, you know, Korean, like, side street, futuristic kind of looking, you know, not steampunk, but, you know, fluorescent lights, all that stuff. We might be getting that, which would be really cool, I think, as long as it's not miserable to play on. I think that aesthetic would be really cool to see. So that might be coming in March 2026 because it coincides with the Trickster changes that will be coming as well. So next, they were discussing slugging. The question was about, you know, how the anti-slug features might be way too oppressive and way too strong for survivors, and they wanted to reassure people here. They said, with an upcoming update, we'll be testing some changes to slugging on a PTB. Our intention isn't to punish slugging as a form of pressure, but rather give survivors a means to get out of extreme slugging situations. Keep an eye out. You'll hear about it soon. So this is kind of what I figured that they would be doing, and which is why I tried to stop everyone from just relentlessly freaking out before we actually got changes and everyone's just dooming, saying everyone's getting full base kit, unbreakable, exponential tenacity, everyone's got all these perks. Like, they're just making shit up. The only claims that they have were a report that they were going to be having some type of anti-slug feature. They also mentioned in Chaos Shuffle, a separate mode, that you'd be able to recover on your own and you would be able to move on your own. But they didn't give any information about the details surrounding that. What is the criteria? Do you have to have multiple people down? Can you just do it at will? There was no specification at that stuff at all. And people just ran with it and just made up stories and stuff like that. So it's good that they clarified here that we're not getting that. What we're getting, what it seems like, is basically if the entire team is slugged or like 3 people are slugged or something like that, then there might be some type of counterplay going on there, which I think I'm probably okay with. So they're not removing slugging as a form of pressure, meaning if you down a guy, there's 2 people on a gen, you down this guy, you can leave that guy on the ground for 20 seconds and chase this guy. That's fine. Like, and then you come back and hook that guy and it'll be okay. He's not just going to be able to pick himself up for free. It would be absurd for them to actually do that. That would be wildly overpowered for survivors to just give them free unbreakables and stuff like that. When they originally tested that, people hated it. So if people hated it when they tested it, why would they just do the same thing again? It doesn't make any sense. So that's good. We're not going to be having to deal with that, but there will be some form of extreme slugging countermeasures. So if a guy wants to just slug the entire team out or something like that, you'll probably be able to do something, but we'll be able to see what they're going to be doing exactly involving that soon. So this is about Trickster. They're basically asking, what is the Trickster rework? When is it coming? And they said, thank you for asking about this. Trickster hasn't left our minds since we first launched our design preview initiative. Please to let everyone know we have been hard at work to bring the Trickster's kit to the next level. We had a wonderful focus group session with dedicated Trickster players to validate the direction we are going in. You can expect to hear more in early 2026. That's cool. I really like hearing that. This is one of the best responses they had, seeing that there is a literal focus group of Trickster mains that they actually contacted rather than just trying to figure it out themselves and hoping for the best, getting to the PTB and going, whoops. So that's good. I love to see that. I hope the people they contacted are actually dedicated Trickster players and they know all the ins and outs about what can make them fun to go against and fun to play and all that stuff. So that is a pretty reassuring thing to see. We'll see how it actually goes. But this is going to be in that March 2026 region too. So I wonder if that's going to be, the map that we're getting. Is a lot of apparently interesting things happening around March 2026. So we'll see. Next, they wanted to go over the comments about the clown and the knight that were being changed in the PTB. Pretty much universally hated changes from everybody. So their intentions were pretty much what everyone said. They wanted to make the other bottles more useful, but unfortunately they made the purple bottles not useful enough and the yellow bottles too useful, so everyone just used yellow instead. They kind of failed at using both the correct play. So what they're doing now is changing the purple bottle, probably making them a bit stronger again. They're reverting gas spread changes. I'm not sure exactly what that means. It could be the activation delay. It could be the spread timing. I'm not really sure exactly what that means. And as well as some of the add-on changes, likely rebuffing some of the ones that were completely destroyed. So I think that would be completely fine. When it comes to Night, we've reverted the standard spawn time changes, which is just a straight W for Night players. That means you get to retain the quality of life of the faster moving of the actual orb to spawn a guard. You can move forward and backwards now. It feels a lot smoother, but also you're not getting the downside of the standard changes. So it also is kind of weird that they acknowledged the pincer attack strat with Night is not fun, and then made a change so that was the only viable strat, went whoops, reverted it and went, well, fuck it. Just moved on. So it's great for Night players, but they didn't fix the original thing they were trying to fix. So, I mean, whatever, I guess. Knight's not strong enough to warrant nerfing, so that's fine, but it's just funny. They were like, fuck it. This is an interesting post. Somebody mentioned that DBD has been moving away from stealth mechanics and hiding and being scared and stuff like that. And it was cool to see our official response on this, where they said, while stealth is an integral part of Dead by Daylight, the game kind of evolved out of it. Through our players, we saw the rise of chase-oriented gameplay and looping. We don't intend on eliminating stealth gameplay, but we want to embrace the direction our players have taken the game as we believe in a player-first approach. That is a really great answer, in my opinion. I think a lot of reasons that these games fail that try to mimic DBD is they don't do that. Texas Chainsaw, perfect example. The developers had a vision, they stuck with the vision, they didn't really care about what the players were doing, even though it was completely invalidating their vision, then they just said, fuck it, we're done. And then games like that just end up failing. You need developer teams that actually evolve with how the game is being played. And I think that is a really, really commendable mindset to have. And I think Jeff just worded this really perfectly here, that yes, the game over time will move away from being stealth and being scared and stuff like that and move towards more aggressive chase and cat and mouse looping style gameplay. And they've capitalized on that, and that's why the game's still doing just fine. They're changing with how the player base is changing too, and that's the sign of developers that are smart about keeping their game alive. So I just thought that was a cool thing. Not really much information here, but it was good to see that. Fog Vials. Fog Vials, I'll just summarize this really quick, are being changed. They are nerfing the Iridescent add-on because as it stands, Fog Vials without the Iridescent add-on didn't really do enough to warrant being an item that you would bring in, but with the Iridescent add-on, it was basically like the old Void Crystals from the event. You couldn't see shit. So the Iridescent add-on was extremely strong and made it very annoying to deal with. So they have changed some of that stuff. They've decreased the opacity from the Visceral add-on, so that's that Iridescent add-on that I was talking about. And then they've added some downsides to it, like uptime and the maximum size as well. There's also some other changes, but I think that was the main criticism I had, that the Iridescent add-on was just so much stronger than the base thing that it made no sense to not always have that equipped. So it seems like they're changing that and they're doing some other add-on changes. So I'm glad they addressed that, because a team stacking a bunch of those that can be reused, multiple times a match is just a fucking nightmare. It was so annoying. But I think that is something that we're going to have to see exactly what they change in terms of add-ons and stuff like that. But overall, I think that's a good decision. Tutorial systems. The question was, are you ever going to improve upon tutorial systems? And they said, yes, they are planning on doing that. Unfortunately, not really much information here. Just yes, TBA, asterisks, maybe sometime in the future. So they are planning on doing it. I briefly went over something I would love to see, and I think I'm actually going to work on a mock-up video of it as well. But I would love to see under every killer, there's like, a very quick summary with small videos of how to use their power correctly. I think that would be an immense helpful resource to new players. Survivors, it's a lot more simple. You just go to a generator. It's like there's not too much more there. I mean, you have to learn how the killers work as well, and you can try to have those videos equipped to the survivor as well. You can even have those videos show up when you have that first time loading screen thing as well. There's plenty of stuff you can do there, but it's good that they're possibly at some point in the future maybe doing this, but not too much information here, unfortunately. They were talking about having like P100 rewards and stuff like that. And they said, yes, they are working on unique player badges earnable per character and varying levels of frames with players' prestige higher, the fanciest, most show-off worthy being a P100. So they are working on it. It is a classic behavior soon.jpg, so unfortunately not too many specifics there overall. But these were just a few of the questions. Everything else that they answered and asked was basically useless. It had no actual real information. I just wanted to focus on the real important things that will actually affect the game and things that I've thought that were interesting to get into like the mindset of the devs and where they're going and stuff like that. But I was going to attach the entire rest of the Q&A here, but it's basically 2 hours of me scrolling through Reddit. Not exactly a compelling video, not worth the just getting the ad revenue for that. So I'm not even going to include that. I think I included all the important discussion points here, but if I missed anything, let me know in the comments. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.